generations apart and polarized over the future of another divisive statue. Abraham Lincoln may have been the American president who abolished slavery, but the seemingly subordinate posture of the free slave on this monument is offensive to those who see it as yet another symbol of African American oppression. And they want it removed from Washington D.C.'s Lincoln Park by any means necessary.
We're done sitting around. We're done being nice.
Glenn Foster is leading what he calls a revolution in social justice, and the toppling of the Emancipation Memorial is his first order of business.
We have waited for legislation to happen. We waited for our government to respond, and they have never done anything of the sort unless there is public pressure. Given this statute and given the media coverage that we received, now we're starting to hear from government officials for the first time.
Across the United States, a reckoning with history is underway following the deaths of African Americans at the hands of police. And statues of Confederate leaders who fought a civil war to defend slavery are a painful reminder of racial injustice. The Confederate symbol is being removed from places it was still publicly displayed, as are African American stereotypes on certain products. And in some cases, not even sacred ground is spared. This marker in a cemetery in Maryland was destroyed because it contains the remains of 17 Confederate soldiers.
And church officials here had tried to tread a line between condemning slavery and the Confederacy and respecting the burial of the Confederate soldiers whose remains were moved here after they died in a nearby battle. But that nuanced position was to no avail.
And more recent history is also being reconsidered. President Woodrow Wilson's decision to join the Allies in the First World War turned the tide against Germany. Yet his segregationist policies led Princeton University to drop his name from its School of Public and International Affairs.
They're looking at George Washington, they're looking at Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson. Not going to happen.
These destructive protests and historic reappraisals have enraged President Trump.
The left-wing mob is trying to demolish our heritage so they can replace it with a new repressive regime.
Trump has issued an executive order bolstering existing legislation that can put those destroying monuments in prison for up to 10 years. Back at Washington's Lincoln Park, some think these bitter divisions over the past can be resolved for the future.
I think that it has to be reconsidered. Perhaps we recontextualize this by surrounding it with other statues of prominent African Americans. We have Mary McLeod Bethune, who was a prominent educator, surrounded by children on the other end. There could be others. Frederick Douglass could be a part of this.
For now, the Emancipation Memorial remains intact, but Glenn Foster's focus is wider than just monuments.
We want to go past just doing marches and protests and demonstrations, but being able to cause a political movement of people being able to be empowered to vote, not just for the Democratic Party or Republican, but for their own interests.
And that may spell another reckoning over racial injustice in November's presidential elections. Owen Fairclough, CGTN, Washington.